Starting to record. And Mohammed Bhaiya, and yeah, I'm going to add spotlight. Are we good? Good to begin. So hello everybody, good evening. I'm Mahalakshmi Prabhakar, and together with Aranyani, we began this platform sometime last year called Re-Cognising Dance amidst furious debates on the history and origins of dance. We started out as a platform to discuss social history and politics of Bharatanatyam, but soon we wanted to connect the dots and we started discussing other art forms like Kathak, Odissi. Recently, we had a session on Satriya, and we've been trying to cover ground on a lot of historical aspects of different aspects of Indian dance. And another important pillar in a discussion that we do is called Discouraged, wherein we discuss the current problems that plague dancers in India, be it pain to perform or body image issues and many other issues that plague performers and dancers of today. And today we are here with Tehreema ji and Anisul ji for this discussion. It's a new series that we're trying to bring in called Across the Border and try and discuss dance across India and in different countries. Over to Aranyani for the session and questions. Aranyani, unmute.
Sorry, I always do this at least once. Good evening, everybody. So Maha has introduced Recognizing Dance. I just wanted to add just a few more things about Recognizing Dance that we started off a year ago. And we've just in September completed 1 year of consistent and dedicated engagement with and critical engagement with dance and dance scholarship and practice and pedagogy. And so we've been in touch with a lot of dance scholars, a lot of dance practitioners, a lot of thinkers from all across, India and all over the world. Actually, we've had the scholar series had Dr. Saskia Kersenboom and Dr. Amrit Srinivasan, and we've had Dr. Yashoda Thakur on the Kalavantalu tradition. We had an event on on Chandralekha's birthday to celebrate her work with Sadanand Menon. We also had an event on reform and revival movements with Professor Matthew Allen and V.R. Devika. And after that, we moved on to, we thought, okay, enough of Bharatnatyam, let's try and also venture into other dance forms in India. And so we had a session with Professor Margaret Walker and Professor Pallavi Chakrabarti on Kathak. And we've also had sessions on Odissi with Dr. Ileana Chitristi and Frederick Margaret and Adya Kastikar. And then we were really, really keen to move into wider kind of discussions about dance. So we had a conversation with Dr. Parniappan, who's here today, on pre-Devadasi dancing in India, in the Tamil country. And also we realized that scholarship is not just things that are written, but also things that can be seen. And Donovan Robert has been doing some amazing work collecting pictorial data, photographs and paintings of hereditary dancers and court dancers and temple dancers. And so we had a session with him. And we most recently also, as Maha mentioned, had a session with Dr. Anvesha Mahanta, who's here also. And Anvesha is not here.
Dr. Ashiya
Sethi was here. And on Satriya. This is just to give you an idea of how we are really trying to diversify the subjects under discussion. And the more and more we have been doing this work, the more we've realized that there's no end to the number of things that we can converse about and learn about and share this knowledge on our platform. And that's how this event came about. because we realized that there is so much dance, so much Indian dance happening across the border and also in different parts of the world, not just in Pakistan and Bangladesh, but other parts of the world as well. And so we got in touch with Tehreema, Mitha, and Anisul Islam Hero to talk about their experiences performing, practicing, teaching Bharatanatyam in their countries. And we hope that this is going to be a series where the next event that we're doing, the next event in this series that we're doing, is going to have a discussion. Is going to be a discussion between Mahalakshmi and me and dancers in India who are not of Indian origin and their experiences. So it's kind of the ulta of what we're doing today. Anyway, it's my absolute pleasure. It's our absolute pleasure to have both of you here today. Just a few quick, sort of boring things that I have to run by before we start the question answer session. Please, everyone, if you could keep yourselves on mute, if you could keep your phones on mute during the session, just so that there are no interruptions. And so the format of the discussion, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, is that Mahalakshmi and I will ask both of our speakers a set of questions, and then we will open it out for all the viewers to have an interactive conversation with both our speakers. And for this reason, I do have a request to both Tehreema ji and Anisul ji to keep your answers not too long. We don't want to limit you or like curtail your voice, but we also are an interactive platform. It's our USP that we're not a lecture series platform. We aren't just about talking to each other and the speakers talking, but also having a critical engagement with the people that come to watch the event. So we do like to leave room for that, and so we'd like to wrap up our question answers to you within 1 hour, so that there can be 1 hour left for conversation with the viewers. So for that reason, we request you to keep your answers crisp. And with that, I think we can start off with the first question. And our first question is to both of you. And it's a sort of generic sort of question. Could you both tell us briefly about your training in Bharatanatyam and your overall experience of performing it in your countries?
Going first. आप बोलिए. Oh, okay. I've been very lucky to have my guru in my home. That is my mother, which is not such an unusual situation, I think, in our form of dance. But it's unusual in Pakistan because here dance is often frowned upon, especially classical dance. My father was in the army, so until I was 9 years old, we moved a lot. And wherever we went, my mother would start classes. And so as a little tot, there's a photograph of me at 3 years old, standing outside a window, trying to imitate the people inside. So I started, I think, with a very strong base in the ABC of the technique of Bharatanatyam, because every time my mother would have a new batch and be doing the ABC, the Ardavus and all, I would be in the class going through it again. And like that, I think I grew to enjoy the basics of it. But also, there is no denying that because there were very few opportunities to do other things, like which I was interested in, like hiking or more sports and all, that this was an outlet for me physically. And then it also became later an outlet for me emotionally as things were changing in the country. Because there was not a possibility of getting a degree in this sort of thing. While I was doing my BA, I joined the National College of Arts, where I got my degree in painting, which I do always continue to do. But this was the thing that kind of really was my interest. And at the same time, how do you have a career in something that is not quite accepted in your society? And I did my Arangetram in 1986 when things were very bad on the cultural scene, in the sense that General Ziaul Haq was in power. He was trying to bring in a very conservative idea of Islam, which has only grown since then. So that's how I started at that time, considering that the laws that were put in place by the British were still here, which meant that you're not really meant to perform dance on stage. My Arangetram had to be completely by word of mouth, and we had to get a space that was considered non-Pakistani soil. So that was Goethe Institute in Lahore, which is where I did it. And for 2 days, by word of mouth, the news of the performance was given, and we were packed, because this is something that I want people to understand about Pakistan. Sorry, bad allergies. That people here really want to see. There is a hunger to have cultural events and to have something finer than just what you may see on television. But there is very little opportunity for anybody to perform and for them to see because of the situation. So training itself, what I would summarize about it is that people tend not to stick to it, because the idea of actually putting in a concentrated effort for a long time in something that is an art endeavor has been taken away from our society in quite a deliberate manner, so that I found myself very alone in this, in having a vision of the quality I wanted and to work towards it. It's also, I think, something I want to say about my mother, that she has continued to teach Bharatanatyam in a country, that's Mrs. Indu Mitha, my mother, where you're teaching in a vacuum. In India, people get to see. And so you have an idea in your head. There will be many different qualities and styles and whatever, but there's a basic idea of what maybe you're trying to achieve. But when you're in a country where you're seeing nobody else, then I think it's an amazing thing to be able to teach a style and to give a vision to your student as to what to achieve, because of course the teacher is not going to stand up and show it all the time. And YouTube and all are there now. When I was trained for years, there was nothing. Doordarshan pe ek program aata tha at one time, which you'd get a glimpse of every now and then. So training wise, it's been a lonely journey. And I always say there's Char Diwari and myself, and sometimes my guru, because I moved away after college. And performing is the opposite. So very often we are performing to people who have never seen a live dance performance and whose idea of Bharatanatyam is from Bollywood movies. So they'll say to you, I've had the most amazing experiences. I always try not to presume about my audience. Yes, one does want to know who one is generally performing for. So you choose your dances accordingly and your program accordingly. But you have the most amazing reactions. I remember there was a man with a very namazi dadi and topi and everything. And his friend brought him. And at the end of the performance, he said to the friend, the first part of the dancing where she's wearing something in which looks like what I see in Indian films, that is not okay. But the second part, which was my contemporary work, which actually had a very sort of dramatic storyline, which I was wondering how it would be taken, that he approved, even though the clothing was not at all appropriate and such in general. It was, in fact, a story about a woman who is persecuted by her family because she has eloped and married somebody she loves. That he found okay. And then you find the exact opposite reaction sometimes. Like, you will say to somebody will say, okay, in the classical part, I came thinking that this was going to be very Indian or very Hindu, according to them. And I found that I related to it. So performance-wise, it's not the audience that you ever worry about, because I think audiences are very receptive, whether I've performed here in Pakistan or when I'm performing in the States, where audience is very mixed. In Pakistan, it's the presenters, it's the people who come to create trouble, it's the media. They are the people that one worries about as to how they will misrepresent dance given the opportunity. But again, performing in the States is a completely different thing, because I find that the more mixed the audience, the better the response. And I always hope for a mixed audience, because that's the joy of living in the US, is the variety. And that's who I feel my dance caters to, and it's not for an exclusive sort of audience.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tehreema ji. Anisul ji, would you like to tell us your story?
You have to unmute.
Thank you, Anjali and Mahalakshmi. And good to hear from Tehreema also. Initially, I started my dancing career, not career, experience in Bangladesh. I learned Bangladeshi folk dances and Rabbit dance and so on. And that's when I was student of the economics. And after I finished my economics degree in Dhaka, I got a scholarship to learn Bharatanatyam in India. So Indian government has sent me to Bangladesh University, where I was there only 1.5 months, because I didn't like the place very much. In fact, I wanted to go to Vilasa in Delhi. And the other thing is that because I did my honors degree in economics, and I didn't want to do another degree in the university, because I don't want to be, academician anymore. So I just left Bharatanatyam University, and I went to Delhi. I met Vilasa. Everybody knows that my guru is Padma Shri Veena Samson. When I met her, somehow she liked me very much, and she said, "Okay, I can join." But in Bharatanatyam University, I was under C.V. Chandrasekhar. He's a very famous guru at that time in Bharatanatyam University. So she said, "Why do you want to leave him and want to join Delhi?" So I explained everything to her, and then to transfer my scholarship to Delhi. That's how it started. And when I started my Bharatanatyam in Delhi, often my friends said, being a Muslim, how come I get in a season Bharatanatyam? Always I said that, well, this is an art form, so I don't want to mix up with the religion. The art form is an art. And then I finished my course there 88 to 93, and then back to Bangladesh, and started teaching here and started performing. But
sorry, Anisul, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you maybe come a little closer to the computer screen and speak? I think the volume is very low. There are people are saying that it's not clear.
Try earphones, Aranyani. Can we ask you to use your?
Or if you can use earphones.
I could do that. Just give me about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
We could also go ahead with the next question and come back to him for both the questions.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yours is clear. Perfect. Yeah. So our next question kind of ties into what you were already saying, Tehreema ji. So what kind of advocacy do you is required for dance in general, but also specifically Indian classical dance in your respective countries? So
for the last 25 years, I've been in the US. I've been coming back and performing every year and giving classes and workshops here. But before that, of course, all my life was spent here, which is the major part of my life. I think that whether we like it or not, arts in general and dance in particular has been targeted by the government as something that is non-Islamic. And though it is not specifically said, it has been done in so many different ways that it's almost a no-no subject. To the extent that I find, because there was a vacuum created, our films had died, a lot of our music on television had died. So much of the way that culture is passed on those traditions had died, that now there are, you can go to entire wedding season weddings and find that there are no young people who know any of the traditional songs. They don't know how to play the tolki. They don't know how to do the traditional folk dances of whatever region they are in. And what filled that vacuum was Bollywood. And to this day, I think that has been the biggest challenge and the biggest problem of a local culture staying. Also, with the slant at dance being something that never quite came away from the red light area. This is something that it has remained connected to in the minds of people. I remember I was giving a talk in Toronto, actually, and in the audience was a very well-meaning young man who said to me, isn't it sad that there are no longer courtesans who carry the richness of our culture? And I just looked at him and said, you have a sister sitting next to you. Do you hear what you just said to me? Because isn't it sad that you should think that they were the people who had to carry your culture and you put that burden on them? So I think that to take dance away from that idea is the most important thing. And the reason that in our place it is a problem is because of the conservative nature of how dance is seen, how a woman's body is seen, which is supposed to be covered up and is now covered up more and more. Traditionally, you had the dupatta, you had the chadar, and at certain levels of society, you may even have had the burqa. But the hijab, which has come in, which is a completely foreign thing to our culture, and the abaya, which has come in, these things have made the presenting of the female body in the first place a problem. And then from there on, the question is not what you're doing with that body, but it has become like, why are you doing anything? So to break that, it's really important, I think, to do what grammar school did with my mother, for example. My mother taught dance as a compulsory subject for 10 years there. But the minute she stopped, there was no one else to take over. And that is the problem, is that we actually offered that we should teach just folk dances to teachers so that they could teach those in the classes. Because if you do not break the cycle of thinking from a very young age, in schools and in children, whether they're doing a little summer course or whether they're coming to a wedding, if we don't break the cycle of thinking that dance is only connected to the female body when it's doing something lewd, or it is something that is not religiously correct, then the outlook for dance here is very difficult. And I think the thing that I always say to people is, when you've come to see a performance, I always say to them, don't talk about my work unless you've come to see a performance. And if you've come to see a performance, I say to them, now tell me what is it that you object to? Because really, it's interesting that they usually don't have anything to answer with. There's nothing they can point to. But when they start thinking about it, they realize, oh, but there wasn't anything I really, really objected to. And as far as being advocacy for Indian dance abroad goes, I think the problem with it, to a great extent, is that it's called Indian dance. It limits it to an audience because it creates a foreignness, and it also demarcates a boundary which people don't understand to begin with. I mean, they don't understand the larger subcontinent as it was. So I think that taking it out of that box would really help. But politics is such a big part of it that we're rather caught in it.
Thank you. Yeah. Anisul ji, can you go ahead?
Yeah.
We'll also, this is clear. Now it's absolutely
clear. Now
okay. Thank you. What I'm saying that after finish my course from Delhi, I was there 88 to 93, and I was under Guru Leela Samson. And when I finished my course and back to Bangladesh, that time the scenario was a little different, because the politically the different groups was there, and it was very difficult to establish Bharatanatyam here in Bangladesh. By that time, Kathak was very still popular in Bangladesh, but at the same time, Bharatanatyam also very popular nowadays. But those days when I started career, then I had really lots of problem. I could remember once that I had a television, Bangladesh national television performances. We did the rehearsal and everything. The day of the program, the producer said, "No, you cannot dance with a dhoti and bare chest." I said, "Then what to do?" Then they said, "You have to wear kurta and pajama." Then I was very annoyed. I said, "Why don't you let me allow to put also topi also, so that people can see that Bharatanatyam was performing with the Punjabi kurta and the topi as well." So that time I really, I'm not blaming them, but then that was a lack of understanding. So the political group also, but the change now, this political groups at the ruling party, they are quite understandable, and then they don't have any problem, because as Tehreema said, it's a Hindu myth. So when we started the career, it's a really big barrier for us to establish Bharatanatyam, because we all know that it's a Hindu myth. It's true, but then when we do the performances on the stage, like when we show the Radha and Krishna's any story, if I don't say that it's a Radha on the Radha and Krishna, I could say that is a hero and heroine. So nobody will understand what is this. But still, I think the nowadays we don't have any problem. We have been performing all over Bangladesh, and we go abroad also. We do the Bharatanatyam, and then government, I mean, a state program, they allowed us to do the Bharatanatyam, and but we use a traditional costume that they don't mind anymore. So that's my Bharatanatyam experiences in Bangladesh.
Uh, Next question, which the Hirimaji already answered, maybe you've already covered a little bit on advocacy for Bharatanatyam. What kind of advocacy do you do, and how do you promote your art in your country? To Anisul.
Well, when I say that, people often ask me, being a Muslim, why we are doing Bharatanatyam. So at the same here in Bangladesh also, it was very difficult to establish and understanding the Bharatanatyam. It's not only Hindu myth, but it's an art form. So in that way, we try to understand the. First of all, we had to go to the Ministry of Culture, the Bangladesh Ministry of. Then we went them, and then we could tell them this is an art form. There's nothing with any Hinduism or anything. So since then they understood, and they allowed us. And the good part is that we have a national academy. It's called Bangladesh Shilpakala Academy. It's based in Dhaka, the head office. And every district we have the Shilpakala Academy in different places. So the government allowed us to teach Bharatanatyam in different part of Bangladesh as a part of classical dance. And unfortunately, in Bangladesh we don't have any classical dance form except Manipuri, because we have a part of Manipur in Bangladesh in Sylhet district. So we in that way we just inherit the rest of classical dance form. We don't have anything, because people are more or less they practices uh, folk dances, our traditional folk dances, and tribe dances as well. But nowadays is as Tehreema said, the contemporary or modern dance is very popular. So I don't know after a few years where we will do, or where we can go. I'm not against contemporary dance, because after finish my course in India, I got to scholarship to learn ballet techniques and modern dance techniques in Germany and Austria. And I guess I'm the first person in Bangladesh introduces contemporary dance. But in a way, I just always I remember my social context when I do the choreography. I always remember my social context, because when I was in Europe, the Europe, the contemporary or modern dance, they sometimes they perform without any clothes. It's a nude performances, but I can't do in my country in that way. So I was very careful about my choreography. But more or less, I used Bharatanatyam as my dance choreography.
All right, thank you so much. The next question that we have is actually we'll just take it forward from what you were saying, Tehreema ji, about the problem of it being called Indian. When you said that, I was thinking about even the fact that from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, they have been different countries only since 1947.
Right.
Bharatanatyam,
And even Sri Lanka.
yeah, and Bharatanatyam precedes that. So, could you elaborate a little bit more? And Anisul ji, you're also nodding your head. So, could both of you elaborate on what you find is the problem with calling this form an Indian classical dance form?
I'll start by giving you a snippet of an experience. So one of the biggest problems, I mean, I think, Anisul, you are in a much better situation than we have ever been in, because Bangladesh has always had a rich culture that it has promoted and propagated, despite the fact that you now have, you do have religious extremism in your place also. But for us, it's been on for a very long time, and I think we are halfway down that slippery slope. So finding support, not just when you are in this country in Pakistan, but finding support from so-called Pakistani communities abroad is really, really difficult. And I was at a lunch party, for example, where I was introduced to a lady and told कि ये रक्स करती हैं और रकासा है. And she said to me, अच्छा आप क्या करती हैं? And I explained what I did. And she said, ये किस किस्म का रक्स है? मैंने कहा जी आप देखेंगे तो आपको समझ आएगी, क्योंकि ये बताना ज़रा मुश्किल है. So she said, I hope it's okay, I'm speaking in both languages. Yeah. So she said to me, ये तो ठीक है जी, लेकिन रक्स हमारे नहीं है. So I looked at her and I said, किस सकाफत का हिस्सा नहीं है? आप किस सकाफत की बात करेंगे? पाकिस्तान की, सिर्फ पाकिस्तान की सकाफत. So I said, आपकी पाकिस्तान की सकाफत कब शुरू होती है? जब मोहम्मद बिन कासिम ने कदम रखा सब कॉन्टिनेंट में, या 1947 से, या 1960 से, या किस वक्त आपकी सकाफत शुरू होती है इस मुल्क की? And she just looked at me and I said to her, मेरी सकाफत मोइंजोदारो से पहले शुरू होती है. मेरी सकाफत बलोचिस्तान की रिमेन से शुरू होती है. So मेरी सकाफत उन सारी चीज़ों की है जो सारे रास्ते से आई हैं. Whether it is good or bad, everything that came in history from the known period of the region I come from is mine. And I'm not willing to give any of it away. So our understanding of our history is so politicized that is why I say calling it Indian dance makes it difficult, because it creates an otherness, which is deliberate, I think. And with it, it becomes difficult to present yourself in any way that is not codified already. I love the Bharatanatyam costume. I think that it is, it's just perfect for the form. But the minute you put that on, there's a certain expectation of what you're going to be doing. And a lot of closed minds see it like that. So getting presented in a country abroad is very difficult when you're trying to explain to them, I don't do the traditional stuff, in the sense that I have the technique, but the storylines are mine. I'm not doing Hindu mythology. I'm doing dances like Tehreema, which is a dance about a girl who has to mature overnight because she is pregnant and she's talking to her mother, who is her closest friend, and she's telling the mother about how her lover, how much she has loved this man and how the lover has left her, but she has a life growing within her. And she says to her mother, tell me what I should do. And the mother ends up saying, Beta, it's something you have to deal with. And so the dance is about growing up overnight. And it's really interesting because when I performed it in Pakistan, people would look at it and say, oh, made a dance about being out of wedlock, and you perform it abroad, like in the US, and people came to me and said, oh, is this about the abortion debate? Is it choice or pro-choice or pro-life or whatever? So your whole context changes into where you're performing, but because of the costume, you are often just seen in a particular way. And I think that this is a hindrance. And when you take that forward, like I do a lot of contemporary work, which I very clearly would like to say is not modern dance. I do not do modern dance. I do contemporary work, which is very based in my own Bharatanatyam experience. But of course, you have more freedom of movement, because when you're restricted in a classical form and you want to do something different, of course, you're going to do everything that you are not meant to do in the classical form. But my performances always start with classical, going on to the classical, contemporary, and the contemporary, because I think if you don't see where it's coming from, you are taking something out of context and you cannot possibly understand it. So that is a reason that we need to be freed from this way of being looked at and seen in a more global way.
Thank you. Anisul ji, could you tell us, what do you find it problematic to call Bharatanatyam an Indian form, and if so, why? If not, why not?
Yeah, Anandani, as I said in earlier, but now people are very liberal, government are very liberal, so we don't have any problem to promote Bharatanatyam or practicing Bharatanatyam. You will be, surprised to hear that Bangladesh, all the private channels, they allow Bharatanatyam. All the competitions in the government is for the children competitions by the Ministry of Education. They allow Bharatanatyam as a classical dance form. So we don't have any problem here. But being a Muslim country at the moment, I think we don't have any problem, because it's not an Islamic state. It's a majority Muslim, but then we perform every religion, every dance form, every tribe dance, everything is practicing in Bangladesh. So we don't have any problem. But then Tehreema, I could remember that couple of 2002, 3, maybe I went to Lahore to do a Bharatanatyam repertoire solo performances. I did at Alliance Francaise. So lots of audiences, they came to see the performances, especially all the young generation. And after the performances, there's a session that I could go and talk to them, mingle them. So they were asking me so many good questions about the classical form. They don't have any regret or anything about the Bharatanatyam. Seems they really enjoyed. I don't know, maybe courtesy or don't know, but they really appreciated being a Bharatanatyam dancer, being a Muslim, being a male dancer. So for me, in Bangladesh, I don't have really no problem at all to practicing Bharatanatyam or teaching here.
That's quite remarkable, because I know male Muslim classical dancers in India who have trouble because they're male and Muslim, practicing Indian classical dance.
But also, I think Indian classical dance is quite redundant to call it Indian, because at this moment, forget Pakistan and Bangladesh, it is global. It's across
Absolutely.
the world. And there are second and third generation dancers today, even in Argentina and across the world. So
other thing you could say that it's not Indian, it's a subcontinental dance form.
I want to say about your experience, Anisul. Am I saying your name right?
Yes, Anisul. Yeah, Anisul.
Anisul. You have to think about who are we reaching in Pakistan.
Right.
how many people do we actually get to perform for? Because on the media, there is very little representation of actual classical dance. And I'm sorry to say that the quality of dance that is produced here is extremely bad and banal, if I may say so. And, the understanding of who a dancer is and what a dancer is and what is a professional dancer, that you have to have a certain quality, that you have to do it as your focus in life, and all these things don't exist here. There are very few people who understand that. Everybody can stand up tomorrow after doing 2 classes and saying, I'm a dancer. So it is a problem, but because it is not projected in the media and there are very few opportunities to perform, at the end of the day, in these millions of people that live in this country, how many people are really seeing us? That is the thing. So you're performing for a select few. Even if I go out and I'm selling tickets openly and I'm performing in a place which is packed, which would be, say, 1,500 people or 500 people or whatever, how much is that out of the millions in this country? Nothing. We are a handful of dancers in this country, and we are not reaching the general population. And the truth is, it depends on how you're produced and for that general population as to how they are going to take it. What sort of place do you get? I'm very careful of my venues. I'm very careful about how I'm presented. And the sad thing is that we have, had to go to places like Alliance Française or Goethe Institute and all for many years because we were not allowed to perform on Pakistani soil by law. Mm-hmm. But now that law is changed, but it still doesn't mean that I can find places where I can actually have the finances to produce and which actually are set up to show dance properly.
And other thing is this, Tehreema, because we brought lots of finest dancers, guru from India to perform in Bangladesh. Like my guru, she's traveled 4 to 5 times in Bangladesh, and every time she conducted a dance workshop, and lots of people, they showed, especially the students, they showed their interest to learn Bharatanatyam. And recent month ago, we organized a dance workshop, online dance workshop. And you won't believe it, is almost 60 students, they applied for that one and they paid a good amount of money. And Leelaka said, I can't take 50 people. So we just, divided 2 groups. Still, she said, it's too much for me to teach 25 students at a time. So in that way, we are really lucky that we don't have any problem to practice any sort of dance form from India.
So that actually again leads to my next question, which is teaching in your country. So how can you talk to us about your experiences teaching, what you teach, what your repertoire for teaching looks like? Yeah. So Tehreema ji.
Well, I'll start with my mother's experience because she has been teaching here since the 50s. And she has taught extensively. She has taught, as I said, for 10 years as a compulsory subject in Lahore Grammar School, which was one of the first private schools that ever opened here. But she has mostly taught private classes, group classes. And I'm sorry to say that at the end of all these years, the only person that she has as a professional dancer is her daughter, which is me, because nobody else has bothered to stick to it and give it that rigor that is needed to learn and get to a quality and a standard, so that very little of her repertoire remains out there. And that has been the constant problem because there are no institutions which are here set in such a way that they keep the historical memory of anybody who has produced work and continue to teach. Without that, you're giving classes, you're giving workshops. Log samajhte hain ki 2 hafte mein khade ho jayenge. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had a phone call saying, मेरे भाई की शादी 4 महीने में है जी, मुझे आप जल्दी से कोई डांस सिखा देंगे? Or the first time they call you and say, kitni der mein aa jata hai ye? And you're just left thinking, okay, how do I answer this politely? So that's what I meant earlier about the fact that the idea that art or any art form takes years to mature, and that you have to have a very critical appreciation of what you yourself are doing. This is something I find really difficult, considering how much there is out there on YouTube and things like that. You'd think people can look at others and maybe realize that where they are. No, that doesn't happen. They look at that level, not that level, to compare themselves to. And this thing about putting yourself out on social media has ruined a lot of things. I mean, people say to me, TikTok pe or Instagram pe, there's so much talent. Of course, there's so much talent. There are millions of people out there who have talent. So what? What did you do with that talent? Where did you get with that talent? How much input is there over the years? And I don't mean ke, oh, मैंने 20 साल Bharatanatyam सीखा है. People would come to me to audition for the company and say, I've been learning for 20 years. And I was like, I don't care. I want you to start with the Alaripu. I want you to show me what your standard is by doing an Alaripu, because you can have been going to class for 2-3 hours every Sunday, which is what happens abroad. And then you do your Arangetram before you go to college and you never dance again. Or you can have really put in an effort and learned for 3 years and do better than all those people who went for 20 years. It doesn't matter. It's your focus that matters. So, how do you teach this art form and keep it alive if that attitude has kind of left your people? And that's a big problem. Then you need support. I mean, I say to my musician friends, you need 6 by 6 foot feet. And you can do it. I need a room which is empty. I need a flooring, which is something I think is not understood enough in our Desi land to begin with, that you need a flooring that would actually help you to dance much longer in life. And then when you're doing a performance, you need so much more support. So that is one of the problems. And then Anisul, you were talking about Kathak. Here it is a big problem because Kathak is promoted as an Islamic art form.
Yeah.
So you're fighting that from the word go, because you also use the word Bharatanatyam. So Bharat immediately is a problem. And then you're saying that, I mean, somebody once and said, ye aapka jo dance hai na, ye Islamic nahi hai. मैंने कहा जी आपको इसमें क्या चीज दिख रही है जो आपके मजहब के खिलाफ है? And then they couldn't name anything because there was nothing in there which is lewd or wrong or which is the only objection really. So parents will bring their children, will bring their daughters to learn because they have an image, like young girls do, for example, about ballet, wearing your tutu and all of that. And then the minute they become of marriageable age, they pull them out because they and for men, I think it's a problem here because it's seen that only the men who dance here are gay. And whether they are or not, that's the thappa that they get. And it's very difficult for them. It's not just female, it's worse than female. It's on both sides. Sorry, did somebody say something?
Oh, no. We lost you for just a millisecond, but you...
Okay.
Yeah, no, actually, this thing about, any male dancers in India, male dancers just automatically being labeled as gay. I think that's something that's globally been a problem.
I think a lot of problems that she's talking about, asking, can I get ready to dance for a shadi? Can I learn this in a year? Can I have my Arangetram next year? This happens to all of us as much.
Really?
Yeah. But thank you for your comments, because it actually gives us an idea of what's happening in other countries as well. Anisul ji, could you tell us your thoughts on this?
Yeah, because I've been teaching so many years. So when I first started teaching in Bangladesh, as I said, that the National Academy of Bangladesh, Shilpakala Academy, is under Ministry of Culture. They are promoting Bharatnatyam and other dance form as well. So we could, the teacher, when we go outside the Dhaka, all the teachers, we used to teach them because they can teach their local student. And then other things that when I started teaching, I had lots of foreign students, and I could earn lots of money. But then I realized sometime that they are here for 2.5 years, 3 years, and they learn really very good Bharatanatyam dance. They learn very good in that way. They're very talented dancer. But after that, they leave the country because they're either NGO workers or the different missions, working in the missions, embassies and all. But then I said I don't want to teach any foreigners anymore. So I started a local classes, and then all the local students, they joined with me. And then those who are the very enthusiastic foreign students, they could come and learn from me. And here it's also same problem. The students, they wanted to be a star within 1.5 years or less than that, that when I'm going to dance on the stage, or when I'm going to dance the television or on a foreign tour and all. So that is there. But it's still, I think, as I said, that there's lots of Hindu people in Bangladesh. So in my class, there's a Muslim and equally Hindu students I have, and I don't have any problem. But then earlier, the Kathak was, they said it's a Muslim Gharana's dance form, and then Bharatanatyam is a Hinduism by Hindu's Gharana. But I think nowadays there's no problem, because people are try to understand that all the dance form is the same dance.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Anisulji.
Just give me 1 minute. I said.
I'm just going to add something to say that I have mostly taught dance in Pakistan. In the States, I'd run a performing dance company and given very few classes because my focus was on performance, choreography and performance.
All right. So most of your teaching has been in Pakistan.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question that we have for you is a slightly sensitive one for the Indian dance community at any rate. And actually, it might end up being a sensitive question for both of you as well. So the Indian dance community is, over the past year or two, maybe a little bit longer than that, has been really deeply consumed by this issue of cultural appropriation of this dance form by members of the members of Indian society that do not belong to the Devadasi / hereditary dance communities. So basically, this term appropriation is coming from this idea that upper class, upper caste Brahmin women in India have appropriated the dance form from the Devadasi community, from the hereditary dance communities. And so this issue is really like it hits a really raw nerve, I think, with the dance world in general in India. We were just wondering what your thoughts on this are.
A huge part of my family is in India. Both my parents were, I think they both had maybe one aunt or one cousin on this side. So their entire families are the other side. And we've never grown up with a sense of nationality, nationality in the sense that hating the other, but always grown up with a sense of shared history. And I thought that when I went to the States, that it would actually be easier, because when we are abroad, we actually find a lot of the differences melting away, and we are able to find common ground really easily. I think because we are in a culture that is more foreign to all of us. And I've got on famously with all my parents' families, who are all very open-minded, a lot of them in the science or art world. I found it very difficult with the Indian dance community, because it is certainly so in the US that the people who practice the form are from mostly the upper caste, and that they have an exclusive way of looking at it. And there is always this thing about creating the other. And I know this is not just my own problem, because I have met dancers who are Sri Lankan, or dancers who come from other parts of the world, or who are born and brought up in the US, who have also experienced a lot of the same thing. But I think for me, it was very virulent, because I am not a Hindu and I'm not Muslim, and I don't do the Hindu mythology dances. So I have had a lot of pushback, and I have had extremely unpleasant experiences, which were a huge surprise to me, because that's just not the way I think. And that was not the way I expected it to be. Um, and I find that this is not so with the audiences. The audiences are very open. The audiences are very interested in seeing something different and are willing to connect to it, are open-minded about what can you do with the technique of Bharatanatyam. One of the women who came up to me after a performance and said, I really enjoyed your performance, but this is not Bharatanatyam. So I said, well, tell me what you think is Bharatanatyam. And she said, well, it looks like Bharatanatyam, but it isn't Bharatanatyam. So I said, okay, so you mean I didn't do the Hindu mythology. So technically it looked the same, but it didn't, but the stories weren't what you expected. And she said, And then the person standing next to her said, but that's exactly what I enjoyed about it. So I think it becomes, it really is a thing about creating the other. Look, I can say that my, name is Salima, but somebody born and brought up in Britain would say Salima, and somebody born in the US might say Salima. So it's all the same name. Of course, it's going to change with where you are, and of course, when it comes to technique, I'm trained in the Kalakshetra technique, but every teacher is slightly different. Every teacher. So to try and say that there's a strict code to anything is nonsense as far as I'm concerned. And as far as appropriation of the original goes, why would you want to limit your own dance by crawling it off and telling other people that there is no way it can grow? I mean, you're killing your own culture if you say that it can't grow. Of course it can grow. That's what classical dance means, that its essence stays the same, its technique stays the same, and then grows from there. So to me, that's the way I look at it. But I think that definitely there is this issue of creating the otherness, and the issue of taking over an art form by those who feel that they need to intellectualize it by their position in society.
Thank you so much for that. Actually, you brought in somewhat miraculously both sides of the coin in argument, because the appropriation argument is very much an attack on anybody who is outside of a particular kind of anybody who's outside of the traditional community of dancers, by certain schools of thought. And then there is also this side of the upper caste Brahmin dancers who have this idea of exclusivity. And so I guess, it seems like, Tehreema, you have come from you've had experiences of both of these kind of clashes, in a sense of this thing that you talk about, otherness, and this fear of otherness, which actually is not limited to dance itself. It goes into our politics, it goes into our our lives, whether it's anything to do with the other, anything that is unknown to us. And I mean, this is the foundation of most of the toxic philosophies in the world, the fear of the other, and therefore the fear of the unknown, and therefore the hatred of the unknown because you fear it. So thank you for your thoughts. Anisul ji, could you also elaborate on this?
I have a very different experiences. I'm very fortunate in that way, because I never had such problem being a Muslim man practicing Bharatanatyam. When I was in Delhi, I had so many classmates from different part of the world. And as you know, my guru, she's also a Christian. So and very much liberal. When I went to Bharatiya Kala Kendra the first time, when Leela asked me my name, and I said my name is Muhammad Anisul Islam. So she said Muhammad is a very good name, it's a prophet name. So shall we call you Muhammad? I said yes, you can. Since then, all my classmates, my all friends, they started calling me Muhammad. But if you come to Bangladesh and ask the Muhammad Bharatnatyam dancer, nobody will recognize me because my name is a different here. So Lilaka asked me to, the class said, can you do the prayer, the Muslim prayer in the class? So I said, oh yes, I can do that. So I taught all of my classmates that Alhamdulillah Surah. Then everybody they said, and after that, all our Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, that everything is we prayed. So and then once I remember that I went to uh, Pandanalu, the Bharatanatyam, that Pillai brothers, the Bharatanatyam came from that village. So Akka took us there, and I had another three friends from one New Zealand, one West Indies, and other one from Laos. So four of us went to Pandanalu, where Rukmini Devi and Minali Sarabai learned from Meenakshi Sundaram Pillai's house. And when Akka introduced all of us, because four of us, none, only Radhika from the New Zealand, she's a Hindu, but including Akka, the four of us is a different religion. But we stayed with, they could welcome us in that village, that Meenakshi Sundaram Pillai's house. We stayed there, we had their food, and we didn't have any problem being a Muslim, that I'm not allowed or anything. And Akka took us to the Chidambaram temple, where sheep dances in that temple. I could go to the inside the temple, whatever they do, the puja and everything. I don't know any a mantra or any chant anything, but I perform the way they did. And when I back to Bangladesh, I often I tell my students or Hindu students that I could go so many temples in South India or Benares temple that you never been in. So I don't have any problem, and they never stop me that being a Muslim, that you cannot touch that one, you cannot sit in my house, or you cannot eat with us. So my experience is totally different from Tehreema. And wherever I dance, I really I got lots of appreciation from the audience, not even Bangladesh, in abroad also. I could remember once I went to Austria and I danced there, and Indian ambassador, he came to see the performance, and then after the performances, and he came to the greet room and said, "Oh, let me greet you." And then he said, "After so long, I could see a good male dancer's performance. So can I do something for you?" But I said, unfortunately, the next day I was leaving for London. So I told him that I'm so sorry, I can't stay anymore, but then thank you so much for the offer. So I'm really very fortunate. I never had any caste problem or anything. Or and everybody know that the Bharatanatyam used to dance by Devadashi in ancient period, and so Indian Brahmins and all. But nowadays, I don't think so. Is there anything that conservativeness in India as well? What do you think, Anandani?
Uh, I mean, I was just thinking about it, and I agree that the India today is a lot more liberal than it was 50 years ago, and that the well, no wait, I have to re, I have to the India. Now we're getting into very dangerous territory, but I think that there was a period in between the time that you're talking about and now, that India was becoming more liberal and becoming more. I think in the last 5 6 years it's regressed way back, but um, but I mean, I was wondering actually whether uh, gender has a role to play in this. And since you've let the cat out of the bag, now I'm just going to call you Mohammed Daya. He, yeah, no, he taught me he taught me briefly when I was very little, and that's what we used to call him. And I actually didn't know that your name was Anisul Islam Hero until much, much later. I always knew it was Mohammed Daya. So, yeah, I was wondering if uh, maybe you've had a different experience because you are male. I'm not assuming that is the case, but I'm just wondering because patriarchy is also a very big thing in our subcontinent, and I'm wondering if you feel the conservatism to be a little bit less, or that the acceptance of you being a Bharatanatyam dancer being a little bit more, like, would it have been the same if you had been a Bangladeshi woman? I'm just asking. It's a very open question.
Sorry, I couldn't get you. What did you say? The
I
question
was
was?
saying, I was just wondering because your experience, I mean, I agree that there was a period of less conservatism at some point of time in India, since the 50s and 60s maybe, but um, uh, I do, as a woman, as an Indian woman, do feel a sort of reinforcement of patriarchy, a reinforcement of racism, a reinforcement of casteism, a reinforcement of communalism in the last couple of years. And I was just wondering, maybe you're not feeling it because you're male. I'm just asking that question. Could it be that it's because you're a male, because you're a man, that you don't feel the conservatism and the regression as much? Like, imagine if you had been a Bangladeshi woman, would your
Uh,
experience?
no, I don't think so, because equally the Bangladeshi the female dancers, they're also practicing and they're dancing, and they're traveling abroad, and every corner of Bangladesh they're performing. And you will be surprised to hear that uh, every cities, every even remote areas, lots of dancers, mostly the female dancers, the girls in the university or college or the school, they're practicing. And then lots of gurus also, women gurus, they're practicing Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Odissi, Manipuri, here is equally. So no one has any problem.
I would like to add to that. I think that for me, a lot of my cousins and friends in India, and I have a lot of Indian friends who are not the dance community, so it's a very different experience. I have been talking about this nationalistic, religious nationalistic animosity to me for the last 10, 15 years of the 25 years that I've been in the States. And they used to laugh at it. And now they say to me, "Oh, Tehreema, you got on earlier than we did." Because this is very much the mood right now in the community, in a large part of the Indian community in the US that I experience. And I do believe it is not to do with my being a female, because a lot of the dancers are female. I think it is to do with the fact that I have taken the technique of Bharatanatyam and I have done something very different with it. And frankly, a whole lot of people are trying to do that right now. And I'm 20 years ahead. Instead of accepting it and being interested in it and being open to it, and maybe acknowledging that you're trying to do the same thing now, there is a pushback because of what you mentioned earlier. The dance propagators of Bharatanatyam, I should say, want it to be theirs. And this whole thing, the way it is taught abroad, is how it's supposed to be a link to your original, quote unquote, original culture. Which is why parents drop off their daughters every Sunday so that they can go to these places where I call it basement dancing, because we are all stuck in our basements. It's the only place that we have to give classes and all. And in a particularly nostalgic view of Bharatanatyam is taught which is why I think a lot of girls stop dancing the minute they get to college, because it has nothing to do with the rest of their lives, you know. So I think that for me, it's more than just being female. It's what I do, and the whole trend in, you know, across both sides of the borders. We just started earlier.
Sure. Yeah. I think Maha has a question.
So a lot of work we do at Recognizing Dance is to build a community, and we really believe that as a whole, the community of dance should come together, appreciate each other's work, and that is something that we're trying to do consistently over the last year. So, and with this initiative of across the border also, so we want to build a community that transcends the borders. So how do you think we can build this community that transcends borders, and how can we all work together? How do you think we can collaborate, integrate our art forms, our styles, and work together and collaborate?
Yeah, and I just like to add to that I think when we are asking you about borders, we don't mean like literally borders. We're talking about, you know, transcending caste barriers, transcending barriers of class, transcending barriers of nationality, transcending barriers of gender, sexuality, all of those kind of things. Like how do we transcend barriers and borders to build a healthy dance community? Both of you.
I want to point out that my mother, who's my guru and oldest dance teacher in the country right now, she's 92, is a Christian. And she comes from a Christian family, a Bengali Christian family, and her maiden name was Chatterjee. And being a Christian in Pakistan is a difficult situation. Minorities are very small here and are not generally integrated very well into society and have a lot of problems on that front. In a way, it has made it maybe easier in the sense that, oh, you know, she's not Muslim, she's different. But at the same time, it also makes her strange because there are not many, you know, people. My father was a Muslim and he was in the army. He was a legend in his own name. And so it was a very odd thing for people to see somebody from this kind of background, a middle-class family, very well educated and all of that, to have somebody like that. I mean, it always makes us very strange in our own culture. People are not able to place us very well. Ki ye kaise ho sakta hai? You know? So, and my mother coming from a background where most of the family was, you know, like not having an MA or a PhD, or like, oh my God, that's just not done. And, you know, when she wanted to learn dance, her parents were very against it. They said, why do you want to do this? And this is pre-partition, you know. So she had her own trouble with trying to, in a very intellectual family, say that no, dance is something worth taking up. And then for me to take it as a career, even I probably couldn't have imagined that. It was just a very rocky road where you had to just navigate and hope that you'll come out in one piece on the other end. I really do feel that politics plays a big part in talking about breaking borders. By the way, I have a dance called Across All Borders, which is set to Nusrat Fateh Ali's music. And it is about the suspicions, the nuances, the reaching across, the not quite being sure, the curiosity, and the lack of understanding, all of those things, which then break away. And the second half of the dance is a joyful coming together, which I hope we will have someday. But I think the reason I say politics is one of the things that drives me insane is when people look at my contemporary work and say, oh, ye to fusion hai. You know, I want to slap the person when they say that, especially when it's a media person, that ye to fusion hai. Fusion to me, the word fusion is a Western ploy to attribute to anything that they condescendingly call, that they condescendingly can't fit into a convenient box. So my response to that is, hello, where do you think Carmen the ballet comes from? Where do you think Arabian Nights is from? If that isn't fusion, what is fusion? So don't try to put my work into a perspective that you can only see it through because you think that by it's somehow more acceptable to you because I've kind of westernized it. I haven't westernized it. I'm experimenting in my own place, and I'm experimenting within the life that I live. So politics, whether it is a national politics which acknowledges only stiff borders on the land, or whether it's a religious one, like my mother being a Christian and not being a Muslim, or Kathak being called Muslim and this and that. If you want to reach across, you've got to stop labeling dance. Like you've got to stop saying this is Indian dance. You've got to even stop saying this is modern dance, because that's a whole genre in itself. We have to come across and just say, I'm holding a dance performance, or I'm holding a dance festival, and then stop trying to put people into categories. It would be so wonderful if one could do that. It's one of the things I feel. People have reached out to me for collaborations, and I always say to them, you choreograph this piece and I'm willing to do whatever you want in it. And I have worked like that, very little, but I have. Because I believe that there should be one person driving the train. Unless you and I have known each other in our work so well and spent so much time together, we really have an understanding, then we could work together. Otherwise, we are going to come down to a common denominator, which is usually very low and doesn't do either of us justice. So just being open to each other under the name of dance and mixing everything up. Like, don't let me go and just see a ballet performance. I want to see a performance in which I'll see many different styles, just labeled as dance. But hona nahi hai. I don't think it's that easy.
Yeah, I mean, what you said about, not labeling and all of that, it really resonates with me because it's actually, I've been having an ongoing discussion with a dancer from a dancer here in India about exactly this idea of like, why are we so hell-bent on labeling things? Because ultimately there's nothing productive coming out of labeling that, except to say ki you are, again, it comes down to that whole idea of otherness. Oh, I am a classical dancer, you are a contemporary dancer, you are doing modern dance, you are doing Western dance, you are doing Indian dance. And so these labels, I agree with you completely that these labels are futile unless they're doing something constructive, which they don't seem to be doing. So yes, I'm all for get rid of the labels.
This is how people get funding. Is you're going to get funding when you say, in the States, you're going to get funding if you say, oh, I've done a bit of this and a bit of this and a bit of this. Like, I'm being very inclusive. So I have to say that I have a bit of Indian dance, a bit of Spanish dance, a bit of Italian, and a bit of this. Mm-hmm. Funding by presenters who just don't understand the art form well enough is a huge problem in labeling.
Mm. Yeah. Mohammed Bhaiya, what do you have to say?
Tehreema is always, in a different part of the country, and we are also very close to India. So for the border, it's only the border, and it's a leveling, it's a passport, nothing else. For us, the Bangladesh and Indian government has a lots of joint collaboration. For that, there's a cultural exchange program, which I, avail that scholarship. Every year they've given more than 100 scholarship to learn, dance, singing, normal education everywhere. So for the joint collaboration, if you know that Bangladesh, we have lots of private dance festival, then the music festival. Not only Indian dancer or singer, they come all over the world. We try to invite the people to perform in Bangladesh, in dancers and then singers and the musicians. So we have a lot of very good collaboration work, and I'm very much involved with the Indian Cultural Center, so that I could do so many performances and the classes and all. Apart from that, we have lots of collaboration, work with the dance drama and then drama, both the side. So 4 to 5 years ago, I just did a dance drama. It's called 11 Nights Alibaba Challi Store. So that I use all the Indian musicians and then Indian choreographer, but the dancers all from Bangladesh, and then all the other part in Bangladesh, and we performed in Bangladesh so many places, and we did the Indian High Commission sponsored us to perform in Delhi, in Kolkata. So we did performance in Kolkata as well. So for us, it's not a very problematic that we can't do any joint collaboration, because the government to government has a their scheme, so they are also doing the collaboration work. So we are doing so many, and because of the pandemic and the online workshop, online drama, or so many things we have been doing with the Indian choreographer, musicians, and so on. So I think we have the collaborating work with the India and Bangladesh both. Unfortunately, we don't have anything with the Pakistan.
चलें जी, करना पड़ेगा.
Definitely, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mohammed Bhaiya, for your thoughts. It's very encouraging to actually hear, that there's this positive, positive things are happening as well. We'll get back to your comment, to your comments and all that. I think Shima ji needs to leave, but we'd really like to hear from you, Shima ji, about your experiences of dancing. So if you could quickly just share something with us.
Can you unmute?
Hello, everyone. It's so wonderful that so many of you are Leela Akka's students. And yes, as Anis said, we had a good time in Delhi together. So I came back from Delhi in 1983 and started teaching here, Bharatnatyam. And after that, I have been going back. Then I went back to study Odissi, and then I came back and started teaching Odissi as well. And since 1983, I have been a performer and a teacher here in Pakistan. And I think I've trained hundreds of students. Many Rangetrams, many people have learned Bharatanatyam, and many people have learned Odissi as well. I feel that it's been a very, for me, it's been a great experience. In spite of all the things that one knows happen. But I think people in Pakistan are so open, and they have always enjoyed the Bharatanatyam performances. Every time we've had a performance, my halls have been packed absolutely. And I've done a mixture of things. I do the pure classical pieces that I've learned. I do my own creative pieces as well. I have actually taken dance outside the auditoriums into open spaces, into workers' spaces, into peasants' spaces, and performed there, and never found anybody saying to me that this is, not the right thing to be doing. Thousands and thousands. In fact, I mean, the Hari conferences, 2-3 lakhs of people who come. And they've always enjoyed and appreciated it. So I think it's a very mixed kind of situation. There are obviously those who oppose it. There were times when I used to actually get life threats, and could found it so difficult to perform. But one continued right throughout all those years. And continued teaching, continued performing, continued creating work, and creating students. And even today, there are a lot of students who come and learn. I'm still teaching and I'm still performing. What else would you like to know?
Well, I mean, we're happy to hear from you, and we're really happy that you're here. And yeah, I mean, anything else that you'd like to share about?
Yeah, so for me, dance is since the time I came back from India in 1983 and did my first solo performance in 1983. Since then, it has always been a political act and an act of defiance, because that is the time when it was banned in Pakistan, and almost all the dancers in Pakistan had left the country, and it was not allowed on television, and but I continued performing on stage, and it always became an act of resistance and a political act. So, and I've used it in that way. I've made my my work of bringing art to the people, to the masses, because I feel that that is the most important thing, that if the ordinary people of this country get to see what these dances looked like, then whatever opposition there is gets stopped, because as Tehreema said, there's nothing really that anybody can find to object in it. And that has happened constantly. I mean, people who come for the first time and say, oh, wish we knew that it was like this, we would have come before. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions about dance. Then, of course, there's the whole state narrative about dance, that, it should not be the state narrative is that let's build a non-Indian, non-Hindu culture. And that narrative has been so destructive to the development of any culture in Pakistan, because you can't build on such a basis. And I've always, right from the beginning, felt that you can't divide art in terms of religion or any such categories. And I've always written about this right from the very beginning. And my first guru, Mr. Ghanshyam in Karachi, was from Almora, from the Uday Shankar school. And they were very much against, like Uday Shankar, against categorization, that this is Kathak, this is Bharatanatyam, this is Odissi, this is this and that. And they, as Uday Shankar used various styles, so did Mr. and Mrs. Ghanshyam use various styles, and encouraged that kind of effort to learn various. In fact, they taught various different styles. So I think that categorizing and that dividing and putting things into certain blocks was something that we got rid of right from the very beginning. And I think Karachi, probably being that much more cosmopolitan than any other city in Pakistan, definitely allows for dance performances to be happening, people coming to watch them. In fact, over the years, I feel, my audiences, of course, have increased over the years with time and with watching more and more performances, more and more students taking it up. I think what we need to really look at, and what I feel is my concern, is that we should try and evolve something that we can say this is our own, and this is what the world can see as the dance from Pakistan. I've so many times had to face issues like if a troupe is going abroad, and so I'm one of the performers, and another one is a sitar player, and the admin people have said, oh, but sitar is something that will be coming from India. Why are you taking a sitar player along? But they think that sitar is something that can only be Indian, but and that I'm dancing whatever, then it should be only what looks like a Pakistani dance, but then I have explained it always to them that whatever I do with my own perceptions, with my own experiences, the experience of being a Pakistani woman living in a very patriarchal Pakistani society. So the way, whichever dance I do, it gets interpreted through my own feminist lens and is presented in that way. So I think basically what I would like to just say is that I think we've tried over all these 40 years, more than 40 years that I've been here performing here, to change people's perceptions about dance. And to a large extent, we have been able to do it, but the only place where we cannot get to is the television, because that will not allow any kind of, there's no classical music on our television channels, there's no classical dance on our television channels, there's no discussion on theatre on our television channels. So that is one space where it is impossible to bring these art forms, which is the saddest thing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Shimaji, for your time.
Thank you very much. I think we'd like to open out the conversation to the viewers. If you have any questions or if you have any sort of comments to make, please let us know. You can also type the question in the chat box. We're opening it out for the open interaction, so please interact.
Can I?
Yes. 1 second. We have to find you. Yes.
Yeah, Tani Bhargava.
Yeah, I want to talk to both the speakers. Tehreema might not know, but she's been a ghost in my life for at least 30 years, because Yamima was my neighbor when Aranyani was 1 year old in Oxford.
Yes.
And you were this Bharatnatyam dancer. And when Aranyani became a Bharatnatyam dancer, Yamima and I often talked about putting the two of you together somehow. And we never succeeded till today. So that was...
We're still alive. It might happen.
This is my mother, everybody.
And
Yeah.
Mohammed, I've known you as a very young dancer in Delhi with Leela Akka. And it's been always a pleasure to see you. And I'm grateful for your teaching Aranyani when Leela Akka was not there. She'd gone away somewhere for some years. So that was, and when you're in Delhi, I'm shocked if you don't see us. So please do meet us and come and stay with us.
Thank you, Tani. Yes, still I remember that, when I used to go to your house at Aurangzeb Road, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. But when we all left from Kendra, we used to go to your basement and we used to learn dance from Leela Akka. Still I remember.
Yes.
And the other thing I remember,
basement.
yeah. And the other thing I remember very much, I'm really grateful to you when I left Delhi. That was the last final year, I think 93. I didn't have enough money to do my recording, and you somehow you managed, funding for me to do the recording. I'm really grateful to you, and still I'm a friend of yours. Well, I went to Delhi a couple of times, and you'll be very happy to know that I'm coming to Delhi 14th of December. I have a performance, so I will let you know the details.
Yes, thank you very much. I look forward to that.
Thank you.
And Tehreema, I know it's very difficult for you to come to India, but try.
बुलाएं जी, हम तो आने को तैयार हैं.
I know, बुलाएं. हम तो बुलाने को बिल्कुल तैयार हैं, but ये governments don't agree.
Actually, I was there in, I'm trying to remember, 2016 2017 or 2018 for a long family visit to visit everybody in the family. I hadn't been for a long time. But performing is a different thing, you know. If performance is something that somebody has to set up for you.
Yes.
So when I'm coming next, if you're interested, I'll let you know.
Yes, we'll arrange something for sure. We'll try.
I came in 1996. My mother, you know, many members of her family have never seen her dance. So, or they have seen her dance only as a student, a very young student. So she was keen to come, and we came in 1996. We were supposed to perform together, and I had one other student with me, and we were going to do a whole evening, and they would not give us visas. So I was actually, my husband at that time was working in the UN. So I came on his laissez-passer, and I was able to, I gave a solo performance, but mera dil bada dukha, because we couldn't come, you know, and that was the last opportunity. So I really feel, yeah. And it's the same for Indian dancers trying to come here.
Yes, I know.
So problem hai.
It's a really bad scene, very bad between India and Pakistan. Not so bad between India and Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank God.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to take up.
Trouble is, they'll say which God. That's the trouble.
Yeah. Okay, I think that this conversation can carry on in private between the three of you. And I'm going to ask Lavanya Iyer, who has a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Haji.
Yeah. Tehreema ji, my question is for you. Number one, the anecdote that you mentioned a while ago about a person, I'm sorry, I'm in Chennai and it's like incessantly raining, so the same allergy continues here. So I had a similar experience being a upper class Brahmin dancer. I call it an abuse now, but I was, you know, the same question that you spoke about, I was asked by a yoga expert who is also a Brahmin, stating that why are you doing something which is actually come from a Devadasi tradition? So I was like, what is the problem about it? And he says, well, it came from the courts. So the knowledge there and the knowledge here is pretty much the same when it comes to the public, common people. Even a person who's practicing yoga has zero knowledge about their own basics, where what came from, what was temple dance, where the, you know, tradition actually landed from. So when you said that Mohenjo-daro, it was like a wonderful thing. I just loved that statement. Now my question is this. You said in 1986 you had your Arangetram, which was like a long time ago. I think we had Rajiv Gandhi here, or I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember. Indira Gandhi had died in 84, so I don't know who took up right immediately. But how did you manage the accompanying artists is what I was wondering, because that would have been such a challenge.
Yeah, well, for my Arangetram and I would say for the first few years, we had us who sang or friends who played the harmonium or the tabla and all. So let me also explain that my mother started the tradition and I carried it on of always composing our own music, and it's Hindustani music to Bharatanatyam. Because to begin with, South Indian musicians and music is not available in Pakistan. It also sounds very foreign to our ears, and we wanted to use something that was more comfortable for us and available. So it was friends and mostly that, because we had no budget. We were not a particularly well-off family, and everything had to be done at the most basic level. So even my costumes were kisi ne ye sari de di, khala ne wo sari de di, that sort of thing, very basic level. The jewelry was all kind of made up. It wasn't anything near the traditional stuff. And so a few years later, when I started earning, that I was able to put in money. And I have to mention here my husband, Bilab Van Baron, who is a US citizen, because of which I am in the US now. So he was here for 7 years. 5 of those years we were married and had our child in Pakistan also. You know, it's very hard to be an artist who never manages to earn very much and you're kind of always in the red, if you don't have support from your family, and I don't just mean financial support, I mean every type of support, like
Very true, very true.
carrying your bags, running around talking to the light guy, explaining to people what a light cue is, trying to make sure the music is on the right way. And I mean, my husband has done all of it, but he was also the one who was very good about first supporting financially to help and get really good professional musicians, and then learning to do recording himself because we didn't have facilities a lot of the time. He did the recordings. I have never danced to live music, and frankly, I don't want to. I've had people question this and be critical of it. It's very simple. I compose for each dance separately using separate instruments and separate voices, particularly for that particular dance, what I think is suitable. So I can have a dance of a 2, I can have a performance, say it's a 2-hour performance. Maybe I've used 14 different musicians for that one performance. So the question of having that traditional thing about panche bhette mein and they're going to pay for the whole thing doesn't work for me. And when you work with really good professional musicians, they're busy. They don't have time to come and rehearse with you because they're not dance musicians. We don't have those musicians here. And to start with, excuse me, it was very hard to get really good quality musicians to play for me because they did not want to play for a dancer. And it did make it slightly easier when you said to them, aapki shakal nahi dikhegi. So of course, in the program, their name is always there and we give them great respect. But it took a few years for me for them to be able to see me and to be able to work with me, to be able to respect our work. And with my mother, it made it easier because she was older. My being very young, when I started especially, was actually a problem because they were able to see her in a more respectful light. So that's been the experience. So my husband was able to help, not only help by financing it initially, and after that, I've been able to earn from the performances and put some of the money back and all, but he was also very good about organizing these things. And I think you need all that kind of support.
Thank you so much, Tehreema.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Dr. Ashia Sethi? Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So happy to have heard this session. I have been waiting to hear something like this. And Ms. Mitha, it's been a pleasure talking to you, hearing you talk and understanding the difficulties you go through. Hiruji, I met you at the WDA in Bangladesh, which you had organized very well. I'm Amy's friend from India.
I know you very well.
Yes, you do. Okay, wonderful. So actually, I wanted to say that it is really sad the way things have been going and more southwards in recent times for dancers across the borders. But this business of Zoom and internet and social media and all that has made it possible for us to work together. For instance, we are bringing out a journal. It's a brand new journal called SADI, South Asian Dance Interactions. And from Bangladesh, we have had Lubna, and from Pakistan, we have had Shima, who has also spoken today, being part of it. I think we need to do more such interactions. And I urge you, Hiruji, that you are involved in WDA, and you have such a large following and fan following and control in the dance situation in Bangladesh. Maybe we could actually defeat the naysayers through imaginative work across the internet. And I urge you also to think about this, Ms. Mitha. I have been wanting to see your mother's film for a very long time. I run India's Dance Film Festival, and now I can't say the only dance film festival, but for a very long time it was the only dance film festival called Dance Lens. And I know your mother's film was part of In Motion in Chicago in January this year, I had curated a special festival. We had hoped that we would be able to show the film, but it didn't happen. But if we work in a more focused manner, maybe we can do many things and really defeat the naysayers. I think borders are useless. Borders are absolutely useless in today's time where internet prevails. And let's not bother about visas and things like that. This whole reduction of the idea of citizenship is just quite unnecessary. We can go beyond that. This is all I wanted to say. And please count on all of us. You have brilliant young minds in Aranyani and Mahalakshmi. You have people like me who are now much older, have weaker legs, more tired legs, but still a lot of daring. So think anything and we can discuss it and make it happen. So don't. Mansubo mein kangali kyun is an old saying I learned from dancers. Why economize in thinking? Later, we have to cut the coat according to the cloth we have. But let's imagine the greatest coat first. So let's imagine together to be a strong South Asian presence and refuse to accept these divisions of borders.
Well, thank you for that. I do want to say, do contact me about the film, but one of the sad things about that film that's been made about my mother is that it is not from the perspective of dance, and she minds this very much, because it was supposed to be a film with 15-minute film about her last presentation of a group of students, and it has morphed into something completely different, in which she says, firstly, her classical work is not shown. The quality of dancing is her very basic students. And they have put Western music to it, and not her own music. And there's not one single toda that is complete. So unfortunately, the same situation that people are producing a film who don't understand dance. And that's how she wants to be seen, through the lens of dance, not through the lens of being put into the mold of an activist or a feminist. So it has been a bit of a disappointment. So contact me if you want to talk about her work.
Yes, in fact, I had asked Maha to sort of introduce the two of us, but then I was able to attend today's session. Initially, I thought maybe I wouldn't be able to.
Write to me, we can talk about it separately. Yeah,
sure.
Thank you, Dr. Arshay Saidji. As you have seen, our World Dance Alliance organized by the Ocean Dance Festival in Cox's Bazar 2019 is due in this year, but we cannot do this year. But maybe we can have the same International Dance Festival next year in Cox's Bazar. Thank you so much for your proposal. Of course, we should do more work, collaborating work through internet, and we'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Aranyani? You're on mute. I think there's one last question from Thaisa. With that, we'll close.
Yes.
Thaisa, do you want to unmute and ask?
Yes, hello, Brazil. I want to, please, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for this opportunity to know more about you, and it's very important for me. And I would like to ask Tehreema if you can share some thoughts about your creative process in dance. How do you think your movement? How do you research your movement to create a piece in dance in this contemporary perspective? I was very moved watching the documentary that the girls share in the Instagram, that you show your dance and your piece back in 90s. So if you can share some thoughts, I will be very, very happy. Thank you.
Actually, that's an interesting thing, because Aranyani and Maha had sent a question about social issues, if you remember, and you were talking about Anisul and his dance on social issues. When we have to write proposals and stuff, you have to say things like this. Like, of course, my dances are about social issues also. They're about women's issues also, and this and that. Again, labeling. It's really annoying, because I feel like my dance is about life, for God's sake. My dances are about everybody's life. I mean, there was a dance, for example, it's called The Fabric of Being. It's a contemporary dance, and it's not on the web yet, it's coming soon. But it's about a person having two sides, or more than one side to his personality, which is shown by a relationship he has with one woman, which is extremely abusive. He is very extremely abusive. And in the other relationship, he's as sweet as honey. And it starts with this person who is weaving long pieces of cloth. And she says, I'm weaving your spine, yours. And it says, every day you make a choice. And I weave that choice in here because you can be sweet and you can be awful. And I remember that at that time, just when I was choreographing this dance with my dancers, the Guantanamo Bay story came out. And I was saying to them, see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The families of those people who were accused of terrible abuses in Guantanamo were like, no, these are wonderful people. They're loving fathers. They're wonderful brothers. They're this and that. Yeah, sure, you can be. But you can also be somebody else at the same time. So, it's a story. I think my stories are always about different aspects of life. And of course, they're about social issues and about women's issues, because that's part of life. I tend to have something gets a story going, and it can sit in my mind for 6 months or 3 years. And then because of the way the story comes to me visually in my head, I decide whether it's going to be a pure classical piece or it's going to be a contemporary piece. And do I need a solo or do I need an ensemble? I've always wanted a big ensemble dance company. I've never managed to have what I want because it's very difficult. It's expensive and people don't stick around. So the dance, for example, for this Fabric of Being, I have a very good friend, Shubha Shankaran, who plays the surbahar and the sitar. And I got her to play those instruments with a folk instrument, which is the dholki and the dhol, for different parts of that same dance. And when I choreographed it, I had some very good friends who came to ask me, took me aside and said, is everything okay in your marriage? Because they were thinking like everybody makes dances about themselves. And I think that's a very sad way of looking at things. I don't make dances about myself. I make dances about life. This is not necessarily my angst coming out on stage. The process of making music and dance is together is something I find really exciting. And I very rarely, I think twice I've used music that is already made, because my music is very closely tied to how I see and hear the dance. The movements are very closely tied to the music. But the choice of instruments or the choice of voice is something that is also very closely tied to it. In the classical, we tend to start by making the todas and the technical part of the dance mostly first, and then add the instrument. But I always leave a piece in between, which is kind of undone, not quite there, because I want the musicians to have their input, and then I will create something to go with that. So there is a set of a challenge. For the contemporary, it can be all sorts of ways. I mean, it can be that I'm starting off with the music in my head first and then putting the dance there, or it can work together at the same time. It's all over the place. But story is very important for me in whatever I do. I have a quartet which is based on the 4 elements, like water, air, fire, and earth. And it's very technical. It's pure Bharatanatyam, but in a modern format, not in the traditional format. It's ensemble dances, all of them. But to me, it's still a story. Like Atish and Gaze, which is the one on fire. So that dance is fire. I mean, by the time you finish it, you're dead, because it's like on steroids. But it's also, while being technical, the story of how fire can simmer, it can glow, it can be all consuming, and it can be exciting.
Thank you so much, Tessa.
Thank you for your question, Thaisa. And
Always there. She's from Brazil and she's always there for all our sessions. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
What do you do? Are you a dancer too?
I am a dancer and a researcher here in Brazil. So it's very important for me to hear what all of you have to say. And I am from the field of dance here in Brazil, from the theory of dance. So it's very enlightening to hear everything here in the Re-Cognising Dance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think with that we can close the session today. So thank you very much, Tehreema and Anisul, both of you, for being here today and for giving such wonderful insights into your lives and your experiences as performers and dancers and teachers of this dance form, and also your experiences of being in Bangladesh and Pakistan. And we heard such different perspectives and such varied experiences. And that was also nice because, I mean, on one hand, we're hearing about the struggles and the problems that you faced, Tehreema ji, in Pakistan. On the other hand, we're hearing of encouraging sort of signs from Bangladesh about the openness and the possibilities there for Bharatanatyam to flourish and for dance to flourish as well. So thank you very much to both of you. And I think we'd just like to remind everybody that we are an online platform. And we are on Instagram, we are on Facebook, so do follow us. And if you'd like, a couple of months ago, we also started a monthly newsletter. So if you'd like to subscribe to the newsletter to get more information about events that will happen in the future, please write to us at recognizingdance@gmail.com. Maha will type it out in the chat box. And we can put you on the mailing list so you'll have an idea of what we are doing. Our next event is going to be a second series of Across the Border with Justin McCarthy, who's a Bharatanatyam dancer living in India, but he's American by origin, by ethnic origin, and a few others who are also non-Indians living in India. These are all very problematic terms, but we hope that we'll continue to see you at our future events. And thank you very, very much for today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
It was a fantastic session, and